G'day from downtown Austin, the day after the United States Grand Prix of 2022, and it was a ripper weekend. Over 440,000 people were out at the track. It wasn't the biggest Grand Prix ever. That was Adelaide, 1995, when just over 500,000 attended. And the highlight, probably Daniel Ricciardo arriving at the track on a horse on Thursday. As I arrived at the track on Thursday morning, I could see in the car park a horse being led around by a guy, and there was a rider on top. And as I passed, I thought, was that Daniel Ricciardo? Went to the media centre, came back out, and I saw a McLaren social media guy waiting at one of the entrances. And I said, was that Daniel Ricciardo out there on a horse? And he was very, I can't say anything. I said, well, I reckon it's Daniel, and if you're here, I'm probably going to hang around too. Of course, he wasn't able to admit it was Daniel, but that was clarified a few seconds later when the gates swung open, and there was Daniel on a horse with a guy playing guitar and another guy leading the horse around. Interesting thing is here that the horse had a pass to get into the track, but didn't go through the swipe gates, obviously. And the name of the horse on the pass was Horsey McHorseface. Daniel rode his horse about halfway down the paddock, stopped, did a U-turn, came back and stopped outside the McLaren hospitality suite, and then he jumped off the horse and posed for a few photographs. What was the aim of the exercise? I don't think there was one. It was just simply Daniel's love of this part of the world. One of the security guys actually asked Blake Friend whether they had permission to do the stunt. Blake said yes, Stefano has definitely okayed it, and they were allowed to proceed, but Daniel has horses on his property in Western Australia, so he's no slouch on a horse. Not that he rode it, he pretty much just sat there while it was being led down. But what a great post that was on social media. Some of you have asked, did the horse poop in the paddock? And the answer is no, not at least for the time that I was with them. Did Lando ride a horse? No. That was left just to Daniel Ricciardo. Let's continue on Thursday. Lando had his golf swing going. He was in the simulator, which was set up by ESPN. And all the drivers got a chance to have a swing, and their longest drives were measured on this leaderboard, and as you can see, Lando topped it. But he probably had 15 to 20 cracks at it. It was late in the day, there were very few people around, and I had pretty much the whole thing to myself. And you can see here that as he connects with the ball, he's definitely up on his toes. Also on Thursday, I ventured down to the Haas hospitality suite and caught up with Kevin Magnussen. Kevin and I have done a collaboration signed print offer, and there are still a few left. You can get onto kimellman.com and pick up a hand-signed and numbered version of this particular photo taken at the Monza race earlier this year. In the afternoon, the organiser caught up with every single driver and presented them with some gifts. There was a turntable, there was a record, cowboy boots, and even some earrings for their girlfriends. The cars were out on track on Friday, and there was plenty of action, but there was plenty of action too in the paddock, where we had the first appearance of Brad Pitt. Now, I have been told numerous times in my F1 time that Brad Pitt's coming. Well, he actually rolled up on the Friday, casually dressed. He had one big security guard and two smaller ones that shadowed him the whole day, but they weren't too in your face. And why was he there? Well, he and Jerry Bruckheimer, I believe, are doing a movie. And I don't think Brad's starring in it. And you might know a little bit more about that than me. I'm pretty sure he's on the directing, producing side of things. And they were visiting every single team, starting relationships. And I think you'll find that next year they'll be filming segments for that movie during race weekends on track when the F1 cars aren't on there. And I hear that Lewis Hamilton will also be providing some advice in a professional capacity. Brad struck me as just a cool and polite guy. He was introduced to somebody at Aston Martin, and he led with, "Hi, I'm Brad." Of course, almost everybody in the world knows that, but if they didn't, he's put it out of doubt by saying it. For one of the sessions, I went up to the tower and shot down in some lovely late afternoon light, and you can see the city from there quite nicely. It's almost like being in a helicopter joyride. It's great to see some of the rookie drivers getting a crack in an F1 car. On Friday we had four. We had Alex Palou, Robert Schwartzman, Logan Sargent, who was of course confirmed as the Williams replacement for Nicholas Latifi next year, providing he gets his super licence, and the fourth one was Teo Porcher. Lewis Hamilton rolled up in some interesting outfits over the 4 days, and on the Friday he posted some pictures outside the paddock with his own photographer, Timmy, the 13th witness. One of my favourite shots at this race is the shot of the tower in the background as they come over the crest down the far end of the track. But that shot has changed dramatically now because they've put in this huge flagpole, and on it they fly a huge Texan flag. So these were photos that we've never seen before. On Saturday morning, Charles and Charlotte arrived together, both wearing red pants because Charles always wears red pants on qualifying day. And I did notice in the background there was a security guy following him, and I had a chat with the gentleman. He works for Ferrari, and his job is to make sure that the team is safe. In particular, he follows the drivers and also team boss Mattia Binotto. Now, I think with the huge rise in this sport, more and more teams and drivers are going to have security guards. Great to see Marcus Ericsson in the paddock. He was sporting his beautiful 500 ring, which he got for winning the Indy 500. I did ask him whether there was a cash prize, and he said, yes, $3 million, biggest cash prize ever. And I said, is that all for you? No, we share it with the team. But still a nice bonus, huh? And Marcus is always enjoyable to talk to, as is Roman Grosjean. He was doing some commentating, and lovely to see him back in the paddock. On Saturday, I was lucky to score an invite to the Williams Hospitality Suite for lunch. Now, they have a 2-star Michelin chef, Niall Keating. Niall was showing me out the back, and I couldn't believe it. They had these beautiful barbecue ovens, and they were slow roasting beef, some of America's best beef. I sat down for lunch, and I loved it. It was fine food, great service, it always is. But the real piece de resistance was this sauce. My gosh, I would have eaten this on cardboard or on bread, whatever. It was fantastic and made locally. Oh, and a reminder too, for the world's best online staff training, head to canity.com. Hundreds of short, sharp educational videos designed to have you and your team at the top of their customer service game. Canity.com. Go and have a look now. Now, cheerleaders were back at the track. We had the Dallas Cowboys on the Saturday, and we had the Houston Texans on Sunday. Now, you'll remember that, 2018, I think it was, F1 banned grid girls because they deemed it wasn't right. And yet, here in the US, we've gone back to cheerleaders. Now, it was obvious in the paddock that they were immensely popular. So, what are we doing? Are we having scantily clad women, or are we not? Because really, there's very little difference between these grid girls, say, in Brazil, and these cheerleaders in Austin. And after quali, I headed down to the media pen, and I found Lando Norris killing time waiting for his next interview. And he looked over at me, and he just did this, with a wry grin, not looking at me, looking away, and I missed it. I was about 8 meters away, and I mouthed to him, again, please, again. And this is what I got. A classic reaction from the young fella, who I find to be a gem when it comes to photographing him. And that brings us to Sunday, race day, and what a monster crowd. You just couldn't move out there in the public sections. The paddock was probably the busiest I've ever seen it, and the drivers' parade was interesting. Normally, the drivers just walk out of this area where they gather, straight to the track, into a vintage car or on the back of a truck. But this one, being America, we went all out. We had introductions and interviews, and it was colourful because we had the cheerleaders either side forming this guard of honour. But it took a heck of a long time. Will we see that again? I think maybe only in the US. Let's go to the grid now prior to the race. It's all hectic and plenty of celebrities out there. And I came across this woman, Madison Beer. No idea who she was, but she was fairly playing up to the camera in front of the Red Bull car. Also in attendance on the grid, Brad Pitt. We also had Ed Sheeran and his bodyguard. And his bodyguard was very keen to put himself between any photographer and Ed. Then there was the race start. I was up at the first turn, and it was quite exciting with that full field coming towards us. And luckily I panned around with the field when they went away from me down the hill, because that's where Carlos had his incident, where he was spun around by George Russell. I stayed there for about 10 laps, and I was absolutely floored that every time Nicholas Latifi came past, the crowd went absolutely wild. I had a chat with him on Sunday night at the Williams party, which was a ripper at the W Hotel, and I mentioned the fact that, did you know that they were cheering every lap? And he had no idea, but it was lovely to see. After the race, I went down to pit lane to photograph the celebration for Red Bull, because that team won the championship, and typically the team hands out fairly healthy bonuses to every single team member when they win a championship. So you can imagine that all these guys and girls were pretty excited because they know they're going to get a bonus check. And they were drinking out of this monster bottle. I reckon this might be a Methuselah. Holds 8 bottles of champagne. Could be even bigger. But what did make me laugh is that they were passing this bottle around, and in COVID times, everyone's swigging out of that same bottle. But it was a great atmosphere down there. Oh, one thing, I did notice that there were no security people standing up in the gaps on the pit fence. So what that meant was people were jumping over the fence into pit lane who shouldn't have been there. And I have heard reports that a lot of stuff was being souvenired, things like pit boards being grabbed, punters trying to grab laptops that were sitting out on those benches. So that's something the FIA is going to have a look at. So there you have it, a random selection of observations from a very popular F1 GP here in Austin, Texas. If you've liked the video, please click the like button, subscribe, come on, doesn't cost you anything. And if you do want to spend a couple of dollars on a membership, find the join button on a laptop and join up as a member. You can purchase any of my digital images at prostarpics.com. If you're after one of my F1 photo books or a signed driver print or some merchandise or maybe wall art, I invite you to go to kimillman.com and you'll find my best images live from the track and all during the week at Kim Illman on Instagram. Thanks for watching and stay passionate. And these cheerleaders